Hello, hello. It is time
Hello.
for another exciting episode of Kubefirst Live. This one's a special edition, though. This is Kubefirst Unhinged, which is what we get to do when Fred's away. So Fred, our good friend, our principal developer advocate at Kubefirst, is out touring the world, spreading the good word about Kubefirst and what we can do to save you on cloud native platform building. While he's gone, I've got the MC controls of our streaming software, which is a very dangerous place to be. I didn't want to do this operation alone, so I convinced, I begged, I pleaded my dear friend Christian to join us today. Chris, would you like to say hello and just introduce yourself for a second?
Sure. Hey, John. Thanks for having me. It's been great to be here. This is my first live stream. This is Christian Fernandez. I'm located in Bogota, Colombia. I am a senior software engineer here at Kubefirst. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you today, Chris. How are things? How are things? It's been a crazy couple of weeks these last couple of weeks, has it not?
Yeah. I think we are doing a great job. We have a bunch of good news for people. It's been great.
Right on. Yeah, no, we've all kind of been very much on cloud nine at the Team Kubefirst, in large part because of some huge news that we had last week. It was announced that our Kubefirst project, which we have been running through Kube Shop for the last 20 months, has been acquired. We were acquired by the owner of Sivo, and now have a much more, although the Sivo team has always been incredibly available to us, we are very excited to be joining forces with Team Sivo and have just that much more access to our joined initiatives. To they've kind of been on this mission ever since we discovered them. First time we ever found them, they were on the KubeCon floor in Detroit back in 2022. It was our first ever KubeCon. Jared and I were there with a couple other members flew in also from Kubefirst. And just a mind-blowing day. You're kind of at KubeCon, this place that you imagine being for so long. And while we were walking around, we discovered Sivo and their message of simplifying the cloud, which is a pain point that we've felt at Kubefirst forever. Being as cloud agnostic as we are, we're always checking out new clouds and trying to figure out who's doing what well and who's locking you in deep and who's got the fastest clusters and whatever. And Sivo was pitching this story of simplifying the cloud and making everything just kind of changing the way that we think about public clouds. And that hit us real hard. We went home and tried out Sivo as soon as we got back, and we were immediately impressed with the speed of their cluster creation. If you're a Kubernetes platform engineer and infrastructure as code is part of your platform building story, the amount of time that it takes to build and provision and then bootstrap a Kubernetes cluster is just a really impactful part of the job. To change that from a 25-minute story to a 2-minute story basically means that you have just tenfolded the amount of work that you can do in a day, or at least the number of iterations that you can do. So we fell in love with them immediately, started working with their engineering team, just a really great group of engineers. And they have worked tirelessly to literally give us everything that we want ever since we met them. It's been just an incredible experience. So we formed a good partnership, and just recently, Mark Boost, the CEO of Sivo, has acquired the Kubefirst project and plans to keep us operationally distinct from Civo. So while you will, I'm sure, notice a strengthened alliance and coordinated efforts between the two companies, we are still Kubefirst. We are still true to all of our story that we've been pitching all along. It's quite incredible. We get to remain cloud agnostic. We get to continue to foster our community and our open source initiatives. We're going to continue to keep the open source platform open source and free to use, and the management cluster. We're going to keep that, everything that we've been saying for the last 4.5 years. We get to continue to say, and we are just thrilled with the natural extension that we have of our project under our new ownership. So yeah, that's the big news that we've got for Kubefirst. We're really happy about the new setup, and I think that it's going to strengthen our ability to meet the needs of an ever-growing community and an ever-growing set of commercial prospects. So, but we're not here to talk about Civo. We're here to talk about Akamai. And Akamai, I don't know if you know, with these sort of newer brands of clouds that are coming into the market, it's a little interesting. The way that the way to think about a cloud, it's really started to shake out where there's two types of clouds. There's the big three, AWS and Google and Azure, and they if you have like huge swaths of really complex compliance requirements, and you just need that hypervisor. Or excuse me, the hyperscaler ability to extend and scale to huge degrees. That's a really easy instinct to follow. But what we have found over the last year plus now at Kubefirst is that it is just not the best environment to work in. And these simpler clouds that are able to boast these blazing fast Kubernetes clusters are significantly impactful to platform engineering teams, and at least in a multi-cloud environment. And truly, I believe that it's a great place to just call your home base. But if you have multi-cloud aspirations, I don't think you can do much better than the simplicity of some of these new clouds. The Civo cloud is a great example to start from when we're adding new clouds, because almost all of the new clouds are going to follow that sort of simpler paradigm where managed Kubernetes is sort of front and center in the cloud. And Akamai is no exception to that. We've been favorably impressed with their provision times, with their cloud structure. It's pretty good. And so the other day we were talking as an engineering group about what it would take to add Akamai to Kubefirst, and we were going to just do it and blog about it and be boring. But we decided that we were going to try and get a little bit more social with the operation. We even recorded a lot of the development work that we were doing, but we ran out of time and I wasn't able to stitch together a nice high polished video to show you today. But we have plenty to show you, so don't be disappointed just yet. But Chris, if it's all right with you, I would love to just kind of get your take on what it takes to go from whatever Kubefirst is today and add a completely new cloud that Kubefirst has never entertained using, and there's no code for it anywhere. Like, what does it take to get a cloud added to Kubefirst?
Sure, yeah. So of course, at Kubefirst, we always wonder how to add a cloud really easy in that. So we define a really nice structure to add a cloud. So we just need to follow a structure, and those are the bullet points that you see in the screen. The first thing that we have to do is we have a GitOps template. Excuse me. Yeah, thank you. Where we have all our clouds that are supported by Kubefirst, we have this nicest structure, and the only thing that we have to do is follow the same structure if we want to add a new cloud, right? It's we have folders for cloud and Git provider. So as you can see here, we have Akamai GitHub. You only need to follow the same structure for the templating. We have management. We have workload clusters and physical cluster templates that can be reused for the rest of the clouds. So it's just a matter of getting in this repo, cloning this repo, and make your GitOps structure work. And once this is done, we have to basically go to our Kubefirst repository, and we also define a really nice structure. So we have some examples with Civo, as John said. We only need to follow the same steps. We have the specific folders for each of the clouds. So it's just a matter of implementing those new methods. Of course, all of them are working with the SDKs for specific SDKs for those companies, for those clouds. And then once that's ready and you have your Kubefirst API implemented, you only need to follow the same steps. We have some validations for the domain. We have some methods for creating a cluster, creating the buckets to store the state for Terraform, and all of those steps will give you a really nice development experience, because we only need to follow the same flow. So once you have the Kubefirst API repository done, you have to go to our Kubefirst repo, which is our CLI, and we also have a really well-defined structure to follow. You only need to implement new commands because we are using Cobra. So you need to add your own commands for your cloud creation and your cloud deletion as well. So as you can see here, John is presenting, this is just the file that you need to create in order to create a new cloud. So basically what this does is this is going to create a K3D cluster. And then once the K3D cluster is done, we install our new macro chart. We wait until the macro chart is installed, and then we send all the params that you provided in the CLI to that API that lives in the Helm chart. So that's pretty straightforward. We also have the console and the front-end support. So we just did it a few minutes ago. So we added Akamai support. So it's basically the same. You have to follow the same structure, the same architecture. You only need to add some images, descriptions, and links. And also you need to define what are the required fields for the cloud. For example, Akamai requires just a token, but AWS requires 3 fields today. So Kubefirst gives you the possibility to have as much secrets or keys as you want, depending on your cloud. So once that's done, we also need to build some endpoints in the Kubefirst API in order to support the console front end. So because we are listing regions, we are listing your domains based on the secrets that you provided, and as well as instance size, because you probably know that they are different depending on the cloud. So if you follow those 5 steps, you will be able to have a cloud running in Kubefirst. Of course, if something goes wrong, just we have this community channel where you can post your questions, and we are gonna be able to see them. So I think that's a high-level description of what or how to add a new cloud to Kubefirst. I think that's it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And just for everyone's awareness, like you might be thinking to yourself, well, like can any cloud in the whole world, like can we add any cloud to Kubefirst? The answer is probably yes. We do have a handful of requirements for a cloud. you have to be able to create at least virtual machines, but that's going to need to leverage a K3S implementation that we just got added to the Kubefirst platform. That was actually a community contribution from Drumming Floyd, who has just done exceptional work for us, and has been is going to continue that work with adding the OVH cloud, which he's already working a community contribution to get added to the Kubefirst platform. But anyone out there that has a cloud that you're using, maybe you're using Oracle Cloud, maybe you're using, who knows, it could be anything, Alibaba, whatever. The requirements that we have, we're going to need Kubernetes some way, somehow. If they have managed Kubernetes, we always want that to be the default for a cloud, is the managed implementation, just because it's a lower burden on our end users. That's not to say you can't run K3S in that cloud, but we have a K3S story to accommodate that. So managed Kubernetes is number one. We're going to need some bucket storage. We're going to need some block storage. And that is almost it. Every cloud has a different network implementation / VPC implementation. They're all a little bit different. And we would want you to implement whatever you consider the best practice to be for that particular cloud. And DNS is kind of the last detail. Now, we don't have a requirement that your cloud that you're adding have a DNS implementation. It probably does. But if it didn't, for whatever reason, or you didn't like the way that it worked, or it didn't have IAC or whatever, you can still take advantage of Cloudflare as the DNS layer on the Kubefirst platform for any cloud. So that's always available to you. You can skip the whole DNS implementation if you want and just leave it to the Kubefirst team to add as the demand is there. Or you can implement it with the native cloud DNS as well. So with that, Chris, I think that the audience is going to want to see some Akamai. And frankly, we published that binary about 6 seconds ago, and I'm kind of curious to know if it's going to work too.
Yeah, there is a version validation that we need to look at, but we're going to fix this after the live stream. So yeah, let's do some Akamai. So I'm running this on top of my main branch. So I just run the go run. I'm sorry, the launch up command. So now you can see here we have a new member of Kubefirst, which is Akamai. And then this is still in beta, so that's why it has this label. So I'm gonna go ahead and provision an Akamai cluster. We only need a GitHub personal account. I'm sorry, this is a ground token. Okay. It's going to read my username. I'm going to pick whatever organization. I'm sorry. Then I'm going to paste my Akamai key. So once I click next, we're going to run some sort of validations to see if your Akamai API key is valid or not. So let's go to the next. This is okay. So I'm going to fill this information with, those are required fields. We also have cloud regions here. So I'm going to select Central, US Central. So once you select this region, we are going to default some values here for the instance size. Those are the values that we recommend, but you can also change these whenever you want. This is also coming from Akamai, and that implementation that I was talking about some minutes ago, like where those endpoints are the required ones to create to add a cloud in console. So we need the cloud regions endpoint, instance size endpoints, and now we have the DNS provider. Yeah. So, John, excuse me. Do you want me to test Cloudflare? Any specific domain?
Let's do Cloudflare. I got a little bit more practice on Cloudflare than Akamai.
Okay, perfect. And then I will, as soon as you select Cloudflare, there will be 2 new fields for you to fill. Cloudflare token, of course, is required. And once you put the right token, we're gonna connect to your Cloudflare account and get the domains that are available.
Let's use kubefunk.net today. How about that?
Okay, I love that one.
That's a good one.
So I'm gonna do kubefunk.net, and then that's my cluster name, and then I'm going to create my cluster. So this is going to oh wait, I need to still, since I'm working on main, I need to put those values here, since we are not we haven't released this yet. So main is gonna be my execution today. So I'm gonna create a cluster, and this is going to probably take some minutes, right? So I'm going to keep this running for a second. Yeah, it's running. So
awesome. All right. Well, while that's running, Chris, I think I'm going to take the screen back over, and we'll talk through the Kubefirst architecture a little bit, and sort of describe in some more detail what it is that's going on while you're running these magic commands. So when we started out, Chris was telling us that he ran a Kubefirst CLI command of kubefirst launch up. Now, in order to be able to run that kubefirst launch up command, you have to download our Kubefirst CLI from the interwebs. We have it hosted in GitHub. It's also available with Brew. If you go to our docs, you can get some good details for whatever your platform is. But you want to get your hands on that Kubefirst CLI if you want to be provisioning from your local host. Now, we have other install methodologies available. Like, for example, you can go to the Civo marketplace and install our installer directly from their marketplace, just like, hop in their console, create cluster, add the Kubefirst application to it, and then bam, you'll get the same thing. But if you want to be able to run it from your local host, and there is some value to it, the Kubefirst CLI, even if you are going to use a marketplace implementation, it's nice to have the CLI handy. And the way that it works, when you run a Kubefirst, so it depends on whether you're using Kubefirst launch up, which will create the user interface experience that Chris was just telling us about. But there's also a command line only command that we have of Kubefirst beta Akamai create, which you can use also. So if you're a UI person and you like the nice validation on your browser screen, you want to do Kubefirst launch up. Otherwise, if you just want to get straight down to brass tacks, you can run Kubefirst beta Akamai create. There's a handful of flags about your cloud placement, how to get to your Git repository, what Git repository organization you want to use for the GitOps repo that we're going to create for you, and what your DNS details are. And on the command line, you would have to provide all those same details that Chris was just showing us in the UI. You would have to provide via CLI flag. But in either case, it's the exact same architecture. We are going to create a Kubefirst console K3D cluster, which is a temporary provisioning cluster that we can use. We colloquially refer to it as cluster 0. And this cluster 0 is just kind of like a home base for us to add the minimal tools that we need to build out your ecosystem in a way where we're not so dependent on your laptop operating system and collisions with any tools that you have and stuff like that. So we create this K3D cluster. We keep it on your local host. And all of the apps that are in that K3D cluster are available at this fake domain that we have called kubefirst.dev. So you could get to console at console.kubefirst.dev. You could get to Argo CD at argocd.kubefirst.dev. Once you go through a launch up operation, this will all be available. Or if you're doing a Kubefirst beta Akamai create, it's going to create all those. It's just not going to show you the user interface. Our CLI will directly interface with that Kubefirst API to create all the same content that the console user interface would also be creating in that ecosystem. This circle right here is the most important circle in the Kubefirst platform. It's our GitOps repository that we create for you. We have an upstream GitOps template repository that Chris was showing us earlier when he was describing how to build out a cloud on Kubefirst in the first place. So you have to have some designated space for the opinions of that cloud, and the opinions from cloud to cloud are almost all identical. They all just have a wrinkle here and a wrinkle there. So the GitOps template is a place upstream that we keep that keeps those details intact. And then when you do a installation, we take that GitOps template. There's some variables in that template that we hydrate with your specific details about your cloud, your region, your domain name. And then we create a GitOps repo. We'll place it in either your GitHub or your GitLab organization. And that repo is what we'll use for Argo CD configurations so that we can GitOps the creation of your cluster and GitOps the management of all of the applications that live in that cluster. So we're still provisioning, right, Chris?
Yes, we are still provisioning. Current step is 7. Yep.
Very cool. So moving right along, what Chris was showing us was using this console user interface to produce some GitOps content that we will use Argo CD and Crossplane to create the construction of a management cluster that is a separate physical cluster that lives in your cloud. So where this K3D cluster lives on your local host, the cluster that it provisions, which is your permanent cluster, is going to live in your cloud. So if it's an Akamai install that you're doing, your management cluster lives in your Akamai VPC. If it's a Civo cluster, then it lives in Civo. If it's AWS, you get the point. So what is a management cluster? It's opinionated. It has what the Kubefirst team considers to be the best of breed, open source, free tier technologies that we have found, and the CNCF surveys have found most companies are using for their infrastructure. So a major part of our story at Kubefirst is that, we're all mostly using the same stuff. And it's really hard to set it up and put it all together. And it takes all this time and knowledge. And Kubefirst is trying to get rid of that first 8 months of study, of learning how to get the right tools, accidentally picking the wrong tools, and, learning the ropes. Kubefirst was built with, 4 years of industry practice of using cloud native and defining patterns that work at every scale, from your smallest startup that only has a single DevOps engineer to very, very major enterprises, which we've run, pilots that have run over a year to make sure that Kubefirst can scale and adapt to the needs of any organization. And we stand tall on the foundation that literally whatever you need, Kubefirst can get you. We have a secrets manager, so we have a place to keep your secrets. We have IAC and a way to run that IAC. So whatever it is that you need, you can have. We have a very GitOps-centric architecture. So anything of ours that you don't like, you can pull request and get rid of. And anything that you want that we don't have, you can pull request to add on to our platform. So because of that architecture, it's all free to create this management ecosystem, this GitOps repository, and establish that foundation for how you're going to build your platform. And we understand that your platform isn't going to be identical to ours, but we will contest that our platform is the best starting point for your platform. So we hope you'll come along with us on the journey of platform creation for the world. So let's talk about the particular opinions that we have in that management cluster. So the first thing that we want to call out is the control plane. Argo CD is the most central part of our architecture, period. bar none, hands down. It is the brain of everything that we're doing. The applications that we host in Argo CD are following an app of apps pattern, and very, very extensible to anything that you need it to do. You will not hit a ceiling following our patterns with Argo CD. Now, our Argo CD has configurations for all of these applications that are living in the management cluster, but there's also some infrastructure as code as part of our story. And we have to have some governance of that infrastructure as code. So at Kubefirst, we used HashiCorp Terraform for that IAC layer. We include that in the GitOps repository that we give you in a Terraform directory in the repository root. And every install that we do is going to have 4 initial Terraform entry points. There's going to be one for your cloud. There's going to be one for your users. There's going to be one for your Git repositories. And then we have a 4th one to configure the details of how you want your HashiCorp Vault configured. So all of your IAC, all the stuff that we create for you is all handed to you at the end of a Kubefirst install. You know, no strings attached. You just get some free Terraform that works. And that Terraform creates your cloud ecosystem and your Kubernetes cluster. And with that foundation, you can have Argo CD able to connect to that Kubernetes cluster to get all of this stuff in the cluster. And then the question is, that sounds great from a day one standpoint. It's a really great, easy way to create all kinds of content. But what about day 2 operations? Because while Kubefirst can give you a fully operational application delivery and infrastructure management platform that you can host all of your applications on and build those applications and deliver them to dev stage prod, we don't know what those apps are. So that's where you come in. We also don't know what infrastructure needs you have specific to those applications. So you would have to write some infrastructure as code. And realistically, as a practitioner, you're going to want that infrastructure as code governed by some entity that has control over the flow of change and auditability of what's changing and who changed it. So the way that we're architected, that GitOps repository houses our Terraform. We have cross-plane managing our clusters. We have a cluster management piece over here that we'll talk about briefly. But we use crossplane for our cluster provisioning operations and the governance of those clusters. And we use Atlantis, which is another open source tool, to provide a human-oriented governance model for infrastructure as code changes. And governance is one of these topics that isn't really talked about very regularly. You know, everybody wants to talk about IAC and which one's the best tool and whatever. But governance is a really important day 2 aspect of your infrastructure as code story. And we've got a really great one with 2 great technologies showing the different ways that you can manage the governance of your applications and your infrastructure as code. So that's the skinny on the control plane. For secrets, we love HashiCorp Vault. They are, while they have technically switched to a BSL license, so I don't know that I can call them truly open source. They are open code and their source code is available on the internet. There's also, and we use HashiCorp Vault for much more than just secrets. Secrets is they have a great secrets engine. It's a rather simple KV store engine where you can keep JSON secret objects very frictionlessly, and they have great integration points so that you can easily get those secrets into your application. Now, for the Kubefirst platform, we don't think that you should be connecting your platform tools or your applications directly to HashiCorp Vault. You might decide one day that Vault is not right for you and you want to change your secrets technology. And it would be lacking in vision a little bit to just tie Vault directly to everything, because then you can't change your secrets manager anymore without it being a high impact operation. So instead, what we've done is leveraged external secrets operator. Every single one of these applications needs a secret some way, somehow. And instead of tying these apps directly to Vault, we instead use this ESO operator to define some CRDs that say what secrets Vault has and how we want those represented in Kubernetes. And that way, all of our applications that are running in the management cluster are able to just kind of like expect there to be a Kubernetes native secret that it can use. And it's external secrets operator's job to figure out how to source that secret. And what that allows you, if you're a platform engineer and you're building your first, IDP, building it with external secrets operator allows you the opportunity to start out on HashiCorp Vault. And also maybe you have some legacy applications that are, running in your cloud and they're getting their secrets from your secrets, your cloud secrets manager, like SSM parameter store or some equivalent. And you can set up a second secret store and still use external secrets operator and just have two backends for your secrets serving as your source of truth. Or you can get rid of Vault altogether and switch to your cloud secrets or whatever. But we don't just use Vault for secrets, we use it for user management as well. So when we start out, the user story, because we don't know your company, starts out very simple. It's a admin group and a developers group. And those two groups, the developers group starts out empty. The admins group starts out with just a single administrator named KBot. KBot is the bot account and user that's integrated throughout the system. So when you have automated commits that need to happen because you have some CI jobs running, or when you have Atlantis governing your IAC changes and something needs to be interacting with your Git repositories, it's the KBot user that's that automated account that we use throughout the platform. But you can easily add your own company administrators as well as your own company developers to the Kubefirst platform with some really simple Terraform pull requests. We have modules that are pre-set up and you just have to copy and paste them and get your team onboarded to the platform. And then everybody has reasonable access to all of the platform tools because we have Vault OIDC providers and OIDC clients for each one of our platform tools, pre-integrated, ready to go. So you get single sign-on to all of these tools on minute number 1 of running on the Kubefirst platform. So we also have a utility called Reloader. We don't talk about it very much, but we do have a live stream on it. It's just responsible for restarting pods when a very important secret changes. If you want that automation, that's a nice operator to allow you to do that. We have Kubefirst in the management cluster as well, which may seem kind of odd because we already had Kubefirst up over here and we were using it to provision the management cluster, but we also have it in the management cluster because this cluster up here is temporary and can be thrown out as soon as you have a management cluster, and you need a Kubefirst ecosystem in your permanent infrastructure. So we start you out with a Kubefirst application set. We also start out with some CI. Our CI story is really cool for all the work that we do on the platform, like, building containers, publishing Helm charts, doing GitOps delivery to a development staging production environment. All of the brains of that is done by Argo workflows, but we deliver it pre-configured to have integration with either GitLab or GitHub. So if you're a GitLab shop, you'll have a .GitLab CI YAML that we give you, and that is invoking Argo workflows. If you're a GitHub shop, we give you some GitHub action jobs in your repository, and we have a action runner controller that will invoke Argo workflows within your cluster. So all your CI runs in your own cluster, in your own house, and you're not charged, for using the GitHub or GitLab SaaS runners, and you get sort of an extra layer of privacy by running it internal. We also have Chart Museum, which is just a simple shim in front of whatever you have as your S3 bucket, so that we can publish charts to it for GitOps delivery. And lastly, we have what we call the trifecta. We love these three apps. So the trifecta is Ingress Nginx, and there's a lot of Nginxs in the world. Ingress Nginx is the cloud native version that we prefer to recommend, although the other ones are also great. There's also Cert Manager, which is responsible for automatic creation and rotation and renewal of your TLS certificates for any applications that you need to expose to the outside world. And lastly, external DNS is this brilliant, simple little tool that keeps an eye on all of your Ingress resources in your cluster, and will automatically create A records in your DNS host, so that when you need to point a particular host name at the correct Nginx load balancer, external DNS will just always get that right. It keeps an eye on what you need, what you want, and it makes it so you can pretty much set it and forget it. Once you have it working for any given application, it will always be the right value, because it's just a great piece of technology. All three of these pieces of tech center around being able to allow access to services running inside your cluster that need to be available to users outside your cluster. So that's always the way to think about these three tools. Now, I mentioned briefly that we install Kubefirst to that management cluster. And it's a more feature complete version of Kubefirst that you receive in that management cluster. And it is inclusive of cluster lifecycle management as well. So with cluster lifecycle management, we obviously, as Chris showed, we're able to create a management cluster, but that's not going to be the end of your story at your company. You're going to need a development cluster, a staging cluster, a production cluster. Maybe it's more comprehensive than that, and you need a production East Coast and a production West Coast. Maybe your requirements demand that you are multi-cloud and you need one workload that runs in Akamai and another workload that runs in Sivo. Whatever those circumstances are, we have implemented in that GitOps repository a templates directory that shows some default templates for how clusters get created and what tools are included in those workload clusters. So we're going to start you out with workload cluster templates for your fleet management that include your usual suspects. It's going to include Ingress Nginx. It's going to include Cert Manager, external DNS, reloader. It's also going to include external secrets operator in a way that it's pre-configured to be connected to your management cluster's HashiCorp Vault, so that you can easily pull those secrets out of your secret store. And it's also going to include a sample application that we have called Metaphor. We deliver that to each one of the clusters so that you can sort of feel firsthand what it's like to have an application with source code that needs to build, produce images, produce charts, deliver that chart to a cluster in an environment that has different configurations between dev stage prod. It has different secrets between dev stage prod. It has integration with Nginx and Cert Manager and external DNS. It shows the entire story of what it takes to run microservices on Kubernetes. So we hope that that's valuable to everyone. With the Metaphor app, we include it in the 3 clusters for you automatically, but you're not required to keep it. You're not required to keep anything that we include in the Kubefirst platform, because you can pull a request away, anything that you want in that GitOps repository, and you can add whatever you want. But when we install the Kubefirst application to that management cluster, it will provide the ability to create those downstream workload clusters. You have full control over the templates that are leveraged for the creation of those clusters. So if there's more stuff that you want in all of your downstream clusters, like maybe a Datadog agent, maybe a New Relic agent, it doesn't matter what it is, you can just drop that into the template. And from that point forward, every cluster you create will have that tool included in it. So it's a really nice GitOps-centric architecture and paradigm to get applications delivered in a consistent way across multiple clusters, no matter what clouds you're running. And this picture is basically just showing how that works. Our console application that you interact with to create clusters or to add GitOps content through our GitOps catalog. All that console is doing is creating some GitOps content that goes in your GitOps repository. And we have Argo CD watching that repository, and any changes that it needs, it's going to make turn into a reality. So sometimes that'll be that we need to create a new cluster 1. So we'll drop a cluster 1 in the GitOps repository. Argo CD will pick it up and say, looks like we need a new cluster. Crossplane says, hey, I can create clusters, and Crossplane creates cluster 1. There will be some additional sync wave magic so that after that cluster is created, we unfurl additional cloud native applications into it, like the trifecta and external secrets operators, so that you can get to Vault. But that's basically how it works. Everything that we do is going to be GitOps centric. We're basically just writing files in a very transparent way. You can look at the Git commits to see exactly what we're doing. And we drop them right in your repo that Argo CD is managing. And then magic stuff happens because we're in the business of instant GitOps magic. So that's basically everything that we wanted to show on the architecture. Chris, how's the provisioning operation coming along?
Yeah, it's going well. I'm just waiting for. I just hit like a couple of seconds ago, 100% completed.
Nice.
Our Akamai cluster is just getting ready. We have Vault so far. I'm just waiting for the rest of the applications to come back and be healthy and be
right on. Yeah. DNS propagation is one of the toughest challenges we have at Kubefirst in terms of giving users a good experience. We can find out as soon as our code thinks that the DNS is resolved, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every single node in your Kubernetes cluster agrees that it's propagated to it. It also, every single process running on your host, some of them are containerized, some of them are not. And each one of them kind of has their own DNS resolver implementation. So it's a little bit of a gray area, and we don't want to just slow everything down and wait arbitrarily. So every once in a while, there will be an app that isn't quite ready. And if that happens to you, our best advice to you is to just go grab a cup of coffee, come back in 10 minutes and check one more time before you start debugging. Chris is in that spot now. Chris, I don't know if you want to wait for DNS, or like we can also switch over. I have an Akamai stack up, and we can switch over to mine if you want.
Yeah, we can switch. I just checked and all the pods are healthy. Yeah, we're just waiting for DNS to be propagated. But yeah, let's switch to your already.
All right, let's do that. And I'm gonna go back to this screen and drop into my console. I did mine on kubrocket.com, and I'm lying. Oh, sorry, not console, Kubefirst. So when you finish a management cluster like Chris's state was, we give you a little button where you can copy the initial KBot password. And when you log into Vault, you're going to select username as the method here. The username is going to be KBot, and then just paste whatever that password is that we give you into here. And that's what's going to gain you access to all of the tools: Kubefirst, Argo CD, Argo Workflows, HashiCorp Vault, you name it. If there's authentication required, we're going to make sure that you're logging in using a HashiCorp Vault OIDC client and provider, so that you've got appropriate access. And typically when we start you out, this particular cluster, I deleted the workload clusters. The Akamai cloud is still in beta, and we have a couple details that we're still ironing out on the cluster management portion of it, but the management ecosystem is fully functional and operational, and we figured that was good enough to consider it a beta cut release. We'll continue to chip away at it and get the rest of the story put together. But in any event, this management cluster here is the cluster that we watched Chris create. And from that cluster, you can create additional physical or virtual clusters. If you choose a physical cluster, this is going to be a cluster that's created in the Akamai cloud. If you choose virtual, this is going to create a V cluster and keep that cluster in your management cluster. V clusters, this cool technology, lets you put clusters inside of clusters. And if for nothing else, it's a nice value add for if you ever were in a circumstance where you needed to have very high levels of isolation, but didn't want to have the complexity of a whole bunch of physical clusters. You could have like one super cluster and have a bunch of virtual clusters inside that cluster. That's what our implementation is in your management cluster when you use vCluster today. And then we also have over here in the application section, we have some nice jumping points to get you into your HashiCorp Vault instance so that you can see the secrets that we've created for all of your platform tools. It includes some sample secrets for the Metaphor app. So we have a development, staging, and production version of Metaphor secrets. They're just fake secrets, and they actually show on the Metaphor application when you look at it on screen. But kind of just to give you a real tangible example of the full architecture of having an application running in all these different environments with different configurations. It's also going to grant you access to Argo CD, which again used the Vault single sign-on in order to authenticate you into the system. If I change this to all, you can see that the management cluster comes with just a whole bunch of stuff. We have Vault and external secrets operator. The thing that you need to remember, if you're only going to remember one thing about the apps that we're delivering, is this special app called the registry. The registry is the topmost app of apps. So in Argo CD, when you follow an app of apps pattern, an app of apps is basically, you can say, I want to have some abstraction, some construct. It's called an app. And that construct is, maybe it's an environment like development. So you can have an app called development. Well, what's in development? Maybe you have 3 different application ecosystems that need to be in development. So you have Metaphor, which we give you, and you have your first app and your second app. But maybe Metaphor isn't just a single app. Maybe it has 3 microservices that comprise the Metaphor application. If that's the case, then you just need an app of apps. And you can follow that pattern as deep as you want to go. It's a really nice scalable implementation to allow you to organize your GitOps structure in a way that works for you. Everybody's implementation of the app of apps pattern isn't going to be identical. Some people want to organize by environment. Some people want to organize by team. Some large enterprises need to have they're provisioning platforms for other platform teams that need to provision platforms for developers. So organize it however you need to. We're not opinionated about the implementation, but we do offer you with Metaphor a really great example of the app of apps pattern for applications that'll get you started. If you just follow that pattern for your applications, that'll get you really far down the road until you're getting into the really heavy enterprise space. And the applications that you see in registry here are identical to the applications that you would find. I'll hit app details so I can cheat real quick. If you drop into your GitOps repository, there is going to be a directory for whatever you named. Sorry, let me back up. At the root of your repository, there's a registry directory. In there, there's a clusters directory. In there, there's a folder for the management cluster that you created. And in there, that directory is the registry. So you can see it manifested here as registry.yaml. It points to this registry clusters management 8. And anytime you want to add something to this cluster or any of your downstream clusters, you just have to make sure that one way or another, it's bound to the registry. And you can follow the directory paths to all of the different applications that are in the registry. But this list of applications here matches this list of applications here because of that app of apps directory structure. There's not much more to take home than that. Just remember registry is home base when you're hopping into Argo CD for the first time. We also have Argo workflows. So this metaphor application here, let me go, wrong one. We deliver the metaphor application also as a Git repository, and we host it in whatever your GitHub org or GitLab group is. And it includes some automation for GitHub and Argo workflows automatically. And the way that that automation works is set up so that anytime the main branch has a change, I'll just hit enter here and commit this directly to main to kind of show how it works. Anytime anything in any file changes on the main branch, it's going to kick off a job in GitHub. You go up to actions to find that. In GitLab, you go to your CI pipelines to find that. And this is going to automatically kick off and start a publish operation, deliver it to development, then to staging, then to production. And here I can actually go to the initial one when we created this stack in the first place and show you sort of what that looks like. So if you hit publish here, what you'll find is that we have some jobs running, and then suddenly the color changes, and then suddenly the color changes again. The reason that that's happening is because this is not running in GitHub Actions. This is running in Argo workflows, and we have it integrated in a way where you get this nice feedback in your developer's home environment, even though you're using Argo workflows. So a lot of Argo workflow shops that we talk to are using Argo events instead of like GitHub Actions or GitLab Runner to invoke those Argo workflows. And that's a fine implementation for sure, and certainly technically sound and very stable. We've used it quite a bit at Kubefirst internally. But what it doesn't give you is that feedback to your developer in their home base. And there's probably some neat tricks that you can do to make that happen. But we found the most frictionless way to be to use the tool that the Git provider wants you to use. And as long as you're using that to invoke your workflows, then you can get that nice feedback directly in. It's very lightweight from an engineering standpoint. So we think that it produced a really good environment for our developers. So that's how stuff gets shipped to your dev stage prod environment. We will automatically do things like do version bumps for your Helm charts so that you don't have to constantly be maintaining, what's the next version of your chart and stuff like that. Whenever you do a release, it's going to automatically set you up for the next version, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's something that I really like, because back in the days when I was a senior developer, I'm still a senior developer, but what I mean is when I needed to have or publish a new app, it was so complicated to wait for DevOps to have that application done. Probably it's going to take or publish, and it's going to take 1 week. And Kubefirst is doing this in minutes, and is also giving you the possibility to have this transition between development, staging, and production, which is something really nice. And this is something I really love as a developer, from Kubefirst, because it gives you a lot of room to do another things and don't care about CI, because Kubefirst already solves that for you.
Yeah, 100%. We also we love the fact that when it's time to have a new app repository, it's something that you can't fall in love with until you feel it firsthand. But when you need a new app repo for some microservice at your shop, it's so many companies that's just like, ugh, do we have, you've got some run lists and you've got some checkboxes and different teams involved, and it's just this trudgery of gross. When you need a new microservice on the Kubefirst platform, you basically just pull request a change to create that repo, and that's managed in Atlantis, and that's all automated, and all your teams are automatically going to get the right people into the repository, and they're going to have the right permissions in the repository, but you end up with an empty repo. And then to turn that empty repo into something that delivers to dev stage prod, you can literally take the Metaphor repository content. There's 4 pieces that you have to copy out. It's the .github folder, the .argo folder, the .gitlab CI YAML if you're a GitLab shop. There's a chart, and there's a
Docker file.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that was 5 fingers, but I said GitHub and GitLab, so that only counts as 1. So with those 4 components that you're going to need to copy over, that's going to be the only thing missing is the source code and the right content to put in that Docker file in order to run it. And as long as you can do that, everything else is just going to work. It's going to automatically build, create your containers, publish your Helm charts, do version management, deliver to dev stage prod, all GitOps style. It's a lovely setup. And man, when you feel that for the first time, it is just magic to go from somebody saying, I need a new repository, to literally watching it ship to production 3 minutes later is super freaking cool. So yeah, a lot of power in there once you start toying with the Kubefirst platform.
Just a note, all my DNS are propagated. It's working well. Do you want to?
Yeah, we can absolutely switch over to yours if you think we're ready to. Let me figure out how to do that. There we go. And we're on your screen, Chris.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I have my new Kubefirst .NET application ready, healthy. So I'm going to log in. Yeah, Kubefirst in cluster series is going to give you the kbot password. So I'm just going to copy that password, username, kbot, and then login. And then we are here in the new management cluster for Akamai. And basically, we have the same things. Services, GitOps catalog is available, environments, cluster management, and my virtual clusters are already here.
That's awesome. Would you mind showing us real quick, Chris? We haven't touched on the GitOps catalog, and I think that's probably important to get on screen for any of our new Akamai users that might not be familiar with the Kubefirst platform.
Yeah, sure, for sure. So we have these applications. Those 5 tiles are basically by default, but we also have here the rest of the clusters that I have created, that cluster have created, like the development, staging, and production. So each of them, as John said, has installed Metaphor. So if you click on any of them, we have the Metaphor tile pointing to the right Metaphor application. I think it's waiting for the CI, for the Metaphor CI to be done. So here's the place where you can manage your application and where you can see all applications that are installed in a specific cluster. So I will go to the GitOps catalog, and I'm going to try to install.
Let's do Flappy K Ray. Flappy K Ray.
Which is a nice one. So same thing. You have to specify a target. In this case, it's going to be a cluster. I'm going to solve this in my management cluster. So what this is going to do, this is going to basically go to our GitOps catalog repository that we have under the Kubefirst organization. It's going to take those files from there, and it's going to apply those files, the tokenize some values because some of them require ingress or any information from your cluster. And it's going to commit those files in your GitOps repository so Argo CD can pick up those changes and actually install that application in your cluster. So basically, this is probably waiting for that Argo application to be healthy and sync. But if we check our GitOps repository, you will see that there was a new commit some minutes ago adding Flappy Array to the cluster, which is my management cluster. I have a typo here, I'm sorry. But yeah, this is the files that were added, so you can basically track what is being added to your clusters. And as soon as this is ready in your management cluster, you will see a tile here. Basically, I'm going to refresh here a little bit. Yeah. So you can see here Flappy Array, and you can also see that this has an ingress where we can access that application. So some of the apps that we have or we support in our catalog require ingress. Some of them require secrets or config values that you might need. So all of them will be available here in this tab under applications, under the applications page. So probably if I try to go to Argo CD, I would like to see registry. And you will probably see something here related to Flappy Array components. Yeah, it's in here. Let's click on this one. This is basically just waiting for the certificate, but as you can see, it was added some minutes ago. And let's see if the ingress has something here. Yeah, it's still waiting, so that's fine. But that's how works. It's going to take probably some minutes to be healthy, but you can handle all the state from your management cluster here in console.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for our audience that's sort of familiar with cloud native marketplaces, like maybe you've been to your cloud's marketplace. A lot of the cloud marketplace implementations are using like kubectl apply or helm install commands. In order to get that application into your cluster. And the problem with that approach as a GitOps practitioner is that it's not repeatable without doing that ClickOps operation again. So if you lost that cluster and you needed your replacement cluster to have all the same stuff in it as your last cluster, because that's usually what you need when you lose a cluster. It's not ideal to have let some third-party entity get apps into your cluster because you've lost track of them if that's what you're doing. With our GitOps catalog, it works and behaves just like a marketplace would, except instead of Helm installing or kubectl applying directly to your Kubernetes cluster, we create GitOps content and put it in your GitOps repository, and we never touch your cluster. And so because of that, if you were to ever lose your cluster and you needed all those same applications back again, you could just keep using that exact same GitOps directory, and you'll have all of your applications back once you have a cluster to attach that application structure to. So we think that it's a really, really nice approach to managing cloud native applications. And what we love perhaps most about it is that it is very open source and very community driven. So if you're looking at the Kubefirst platform and saying, well, that looks nice, but pretty much everything that you would say after but is a great example of something that should go in the GitOps catalog. We have a lot of users that are using Kubefirst for a demo platform. For example, maybe you're selling some cloud native product and every day you have to go into a new company and show them how it works, and you want to start from some kind of square one. There's really no better starting point than a Kubefirst platform with a GitOps catalog that's your specific app. And then all you have to do is Kubefirst install and then put your app on top of it. And then you'll always be up to date on the latest versions of Kubernetes. You'll always be up to date on the latest version of all these different cloud native tools that are all working together. And then all you have to worry about is your app, which is where you want to be in life. So yeah, we love the angle that we're taking with it. We're interested in your feedback. We do have great aspirations for where we're going to take the GitOps catalog on our pro tier. The way it works right now is basically just it interacts with your management cluster. But with when we introduce the pro tier, the ability to target those downstream clusters like Chris was showing us, those are all going to be behind an eventual paywall that we're introducing right now. It's all kind of beta, and we're soliciting feedback on how it all works. So by all means, if you have any complaints about it, or you envision something that's close to this, but a little bit further along, some concepts that we're working through is the ability to host your own GitOps catalog for your company. We know a lot of enterprises are going to want that. And Chris was already showing us, we just recently added the ability to target templates so that you can add GitOps catalog pieces to your fleet management instead of to individual already created clusters, but you can also target clusters or virtual clusters as well, which is just like, can't ask for much more than that. So yeah, that's, I don't know. Oh, there's one more thing we have to show. We have to show some Atlantis, or let's do Atlantis. Can we show just a pull request of a new secret? And if you'd rather me screen share that, I'm happy to do that too.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah, let me do that. So I will go back to present. All right. Oh, I almost let my joke slip. I can't do that, Chris. Can't do that. So what I'm going to do is go, let me go back to Kubefirst, to my GitOps repo, and I'm going to show you the experience of changing infrastructure as code real fast, and then we're going to wrap this thing up with a joke and high five. So I'm going to go to the Terraform directory. This has all of the Terraform IAC that we're using on the platform, with the exception of the clusters, which are managed in clusters in GitOps because it's cross-plane. But this is Terraform that's being governed by Atlantis and works that way. So in this Terraform directory, I'm just going to take any old example, vault secrets. If I pop down here and edit and take our... Yeah, let me take that production secret I was shown on screen just a little bit ago. I'm going to copy that, paste it down here. I'm going to call it Akamai. No, that was terrible. Let me try that again. One, two, three of those, and we'll call this Akamai's secret. And when I commit this, I'm not going to commit this to main because only pull requests are honored by the Atlantis system. So you have to go through the correct ranks. So that's a fine comment. I'm going to say new branch, don't care what the name is, and create. And in a second here, Atlantis is going to wake up and say, you know, hey, looks like you have a job to do. The reason that it was able to wake up, the GitOps repository has a webhook pre-configured in it that is set up to interact with Atlantis that's running inside your new management cluster. As a result, you get this nice automation. It says, hey, looks like this plan, when it runs, it would create a vault generic secret. And if you like that plan, all you have to do is type Atlantis apply. And when you comment that, Atlantis says, I got you. It deals with all of the things about like when you have two plans that are happening against the same Terraform resources at the same time, it manages the locks on those resources so that you don't accidentally collide. I don't know if you've ever had the privilege, but if you ever collide on two applies happening at the same time, it can corrupt your Terraform state and just create a whole nightmare of a mess. So it protects your state locks so that you always only have one person able to run and apply at a single time. And much more importantly, the most important thing about Atlantis or any governance implementation is the auditability that it's going to give you. And what we love about it is that while you could let your SREs or your cloud engineers run Terraform directly from their laptop, you don't know what they're running. You don't know what their code is. You don't know how it went. You don't know if it gave them an error and they made some quick decisions on their own laptop and didn't tell anybody about it. That's all terrible for a platform team. You want auditability. You want everything transparent. And sometimes you do get into those fights, even with Atlantis. Maybe the Terraform plan says, yeah, I can create that repo. But when it's time to actually create the repo, it already exists and there's a collision there. And you have to decide what to do about that. Are you going to rename it? Are you going to rename the old one? What are you going to do about it? Having all of those decisions transparent in Atlantis is just a much better way to run your Terraform than letting your engineers run Terraform on their local hosts. And it has the added benefit of allowing you to extend your IAC to your development team. So now your developers can pull request changes that they think should be right for infrastructure as code, but you can have the correct approvers in place to make sure that they're doing it the way that you want it for your platform. And it's all nice and transparent, but you never have to give that developer access to the cloud. You never have to give them access to your Kubernetes cluster if you don't want that. And you get this super nice audit log if you go to your pull requests of everything that's ever happened to your platform. You can just go down the list of your GitOps changes, and it's going to be everything that happened from a code standpoint or from an infrastructure standpoint, which is, in our opinion, ideal. So, Chris, I think that was a pretty good show. I mean, just 1 week ago, we had not one single line of code written for Akamai. I think we got a decent MVP beta of Akamai developed. In the show today, we were able to sort of describe to our audience, if they wanted to do the same thing for their favorite cloud, what the steps are in order to do that. We even have a core contributing member who has recently implemented a K3S cloud, if you will. It's not technically a cloud, but it behaves architecturally the same way a cloud does. And he's also going to be adding OVH. So if OVH is that one that you want to add, I'm sure he wouldn't argue with you if you wanted to do it first. But we do have that one coming in. Any other cloud we don't have current plans for. So by all means, if you want that cloud, we want to work with you. We will, set up Slack channels and make sure that you have everything that you need to implement any cloud that you want on the Kubefirst platform. And we'll continue to expand and get into those remaining clouds as our aggressive timelines permit us to. So Chris, this is the best part of the show.
I'm sorry, before you finish, I think I have two news for you. Our latest release is good. I just made a mistake. I had a previous launch version, so I didn't see anything. There is still a message because we are waiting for Homebrew to upgrade the references. But I think we are going to be okay. And the second thing is, can you believe that we did this without Mongo?
Oh my gosh, I forgot to talk about Mongo. Bye, Mongo. We have been running a data store on Mongo forever. Chris, what happened to Mongo?
Well, as you probably know, we had some performance issues before. We needed to wait for Mongo in order to get our APIs healthy and running. And that operation was taking from 3 to 5 minutes-ish. And we were able to reduce this time getting rid of Mongo. And we are now using Kubernetes native secrets to store all the information. So we don't need any external dependency on our APIs, which is great. And we were also able to improve our performance a little bit. But yeah, this is a really great update for our Helm charts.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, no, it gets rid. We have some historically. We have some different installs for whether you're on ARM or on Intel-based chipset that was because of Mongo. We had the delayed startup time because now that we're all on Kubernetes native everything,
Yes.
we're hoping that it's going to be a lot more easy for people to understand the data that we're storing, the type of information that we're keeping, able to configure that information themselves if they're brave enough. But for ourselves, it's also going to produce a more frictionless implementation for operations when we need to move state around from cluster to cluster or anything like that. Everything's just gotten a lot simpler with the Kubernetes native data store, and it's right there in alignment with our favorite. I think I can call Argo CD our favorite technology. It's my favorite, at least.
Yeah, it is.
That's a collective opinion, but God, I really love Argo CD. But yeah, it's similar to the architecture that they have for the type of content that they need to store, and we feel really good about it on its first week, and in fact, it's its first hour in production, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
it's already there in production, so just amazing.
Right on. No, thank you for calling that out. I would have left this live stream having never mentioned Mongo because I'm just so smitten with K3S and Akamai and everything that's going on. Yeah, we ripped the guts out of the Kubefirst application ecosystem as well, and are using Kubernetes native secrets and config for that now. So that's super cool. So Chris, I know you know how we wrap this up. This is the best part. I'm going to give you my best Fred. This is my best Fred impression. Today, our joke is, what is the best thing about telling UDP jokes?
What is the best way to telling you jokes? I don't know. You tell me.
UDP jokes. The best thing about telling UDP jokes, you don't care if anybody gets them. You just don't care. Just throw them out into the wild. Whoever gets them will get them. It's a little protocol. It's terrible. They're always terrible.
We miss.
I promise Fred loved it. Fred loved it. He's laughing. He's laughing right now from his airplane, I'm sure.
We love you, Fred.
Indeed, we do. So, speaking of Fred, Fred's got some conferences coming up. Some talks that he's given. Go to kubefirst.io/events to check out where Fred's talking next. And let's see. I guess that's pretty much everything that we have to do to wrap this thing up. Chris, it was so nice having you on Kubefirst Live for the first time. Well overdue. For our audience at home, Chris has been the engineering cornerstone through the entire thing, and was solely responsible for all UI stuff until we got some help in that department. He's been a platform engineer, he's been a cloud engineer, he's been a cloud native engineer, you name it, this guy does it. And to be able to share a little bit of airtime with you today has been truly an honor. It's nice having you on the show. And for our audience, stay tuned, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks when we are doing. I have no idea what our next one is, but it's going to be. It's probably going to be less unhinged than this one, since Fred will be back.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you guys. See you in 2.